Better to leave early. Yeah.
Sweat trickling down.
Tanner should have yesterday for the meeting.
He did not.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. We're gonna start in just a minute.
Did I hang on to this? Just leave it up here.
We could probably go to the next slide. Should ask everybody, you want to ask everybody to be seated to get started? So I don't know why it just shows the small version. Let me see.
I'm making a full screen.
Oh, there we go. Was that better?
Yeah, so I'll need a, this is unmuted, right?
No, it's me. It's not muted.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't need to do it. So I'm muted.
Okay.
If everyone could please take your seats, we will get started. Please take your seats.
I don't think anybody heard you.
Yeah, I'll just spread the word.
You want me to whistle?
They
Is that
just want people
appropriate?
to take their seats.
But
So
if I-
however, go
if
ahead.
you
Go
take
ahead. Woo! All right. Thanks, Shannon. Let's all take our seats.
I was directed to do that by the president.
Okay, thank you. We are going to call to order the 2024 St. Joseph County Bar Association Annual Meeting. Today is May 31st, 2024. It's now 11:02 a.m. We are meeting in the St. Joseph Circuit Court and broadcasting online via Zoom. And I'll note for the record that we do have a quorum of Board of Governors present for this meeting. We will begin with the treasurer's report, and I will ask our treasurer Shannon Boari to come up for that.
We're doing good. We're in the green, not the red or the black. That's a plus, but we do want to send a special thank you to the Bar Foundation for their generous contribution for the 150th anniversary. That certainly helped keep us in the green. Dues, if you haven't received them yet, you will receive them. We ask that you pay those relatively quickly because that does help us stay in the green. Thank you.
City of Bloomington Clerk's Office, this is Susan. May I help you?
Okay, thank you. We will now move to the nominating committee report. In accordance with the bylaws, I
Hold on
appointed
just a
the
moment.
nominating committee and convened a meeting on April 30th. I will read the report. It is also found in the agenda for those of you who grabbed one of those. As provided in Article 6 of the bylaws of the association, Sean M. Towner shall automatically succeed to the present office of
Yep, I
president.
do.
Laura
It's Dave
Fawcett
Walsh.
shall automatically succeed to the office of president-elect from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. With respect to the other officers and members of the Board of Governors, the president has appointed a nominating committee as required by Article 9 of the bylaws. And the committee has published the following list of nominees: Vice President Thomas Keller, Secretary Ryan Milligan, Treasurer Shannon Boari, Board of Governors Robert Jones Jr. with a 2024 to 2027 term, Alex C. Bowman, 2024 to 2027 term, ex officio members Honorable Michael G. Gotch, Angie Hugavine, and Joseph R. Foldenkamp, and new lawyers Chair Savannah Betcher. As provided by Article 7 of the bylaws, immediate past president Danielle Weiss shall remain on the Board of Governors as a voting member for a term expiring in 2025. Members also remaining on the board for terms expiring in 2026 are George Catanzari and Daniel Obert for a term expiring in 2025, and Kylie Connell and Aaron Linder Hannig. So this slate has been published in the Bar Association emails for several weeks now, having received no other proposals for additional nominations within the time frame allowed by the bylaws. The entire slate of nominations as proposed by the nominating committee may be adopted at this time. So I would like to ask for a motion from the board members present to adopt the nominating committee's recommendations for July 2024 through June 2025. Any second? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Okay, any opposed? Okay, the nominees have been approved. We will now move to the St. Joseph County Bar Foundation report. Bar Association member, board member Erin Linder Hanig and liaison to the Bar Foundation. Give the report.
Thanks, Danny. So we're being very efficient today, so I'll try to keep on that path. For those of you who aren't as familiar with the Bar Foundation, the foundation is the philanthropic arm of the St. Joe County Bar Association. And the foundation seeks to provide grants to law-related activities in the community, more of a grassroots focus than the Bar Association. So for example, we like to focus on projects that lawyers in the community are involved in. So if you have anything like that, or know someone that is, bring it to the foundation. Always looking to hear new ideas. We work on funding law-related education, civics. One of the things that the Bar Foundation has been involved with for years and was again this year was funding the high school mock trial teams. So we've had the good fortune in St. Joe County to have teams that have won the state championship for, gosh, many, many years now. And traditionally, the foundation has provided some funding for the team that comes out of Indiana that goes to nationals. So this year we did that for Trinity High School. We gave them a little under $3,000 for their sophomore team. So they have some promise there as sophomores for them to go to nationals. We didn't do as much in quantity this year for the foundation, mostly focused on quality, which was the 150th gala celebration that went really well, raised more than $20,000 for both the Bar Association and the Bar Foundation. We also sponsored the collegiate undergrad mock trial team for Notre Dame for the second year in a row, and planning to do the biannual Bill Stanley Civility Seminar as well this year, which will be in the late fall and a good place to get ethics CLAs. So future goal, trying to build up the reserves so we can continue the foundation's funding and sponsorship of these local projects. Thanks.
Okay, we will now move to the presentation of the memorial section. I would like to invite the chairman of the Memorial Committee, Judge Woods, forward to do these presentations.
Good morning. On behalf of the Board of Governors of the St. Joseph County Bar Association and each and every member of the Bar Association, we welcome the families of the individuals that we're here to memorialize today. We're happy to have some present in the courtroom. We understand that others may be present via Zoom, but we certainly appreciate appreciate your family participating today. It's not lost upon me that the practice of law, to do it well, it is not a 9-to-5 job. It's not necessarily even a Monday to Friday job. We understand that there are sacrifices that these families made so that these individuals we're going to honor today can not only practice the law well, but as we'll hear from the people that will come up and address us, these gentlemen served not only our community, they served our country in the United States military. Their accomplishments of the group that we're going to memorialize this afternoon are so great and have had such a long-lasting impact in St. Joseph County. The words that we speak today will not adequately address those. But we're going to turn to this portion of our meeting. The first person that we're going to memorialize is Mr. Charles Sweeney. Addressing and giving some remarks regarding Mr. Sweeney will be Mr. Jim Groves.
It's certainly my privilege and pleasure to speak on behalf of my deceased colleague, Charlie Sweeney. As I look around this room, I see mostly young faces. In fact, every face I see, except for Rick Morgan, is younger than I am. Charlie was older than I, and when I first started practicing, it was a day when lawyers would meet each other in this courthouse and shake the hand of a young lawyer and say, "I'm Charlie Sweeney, who are you?" That's how I got to meet him. But apparently, at some way along the line, he decided, after I was about 3 or 4 years in the practice of law, to hire me. He called me and he said, "Well, I've got this little pissing match going on with the University of Notre Dame." "Oh, what's that, Charlie?" "Well, I developed this magazine called Go Irish." Now, I need to tell you, he beat Notre Dame off of the planning board with this magazine that interviewed football players, had articles, had press passes during the games and what have you. Most major universities had been starting that kind of a routine. Notre Dame was going to start it too. And they didn't like it that Charlie, being the entrepreneur that he was using the United States Post Office as the mailing address to solicit the magazine. So he was getting letters and checks from all over the country sent to the United States Post Office, care of Notre Dame, because Notre Dame has its own post office. They felt that this was all a violation of copyright. And I do remember, I don't see Phil Facenda here. Is he here today? His father was the general counsel for Notre Dame at that time. And he was meeting with me in my office to try to resolve this dispute, in which Notre Dame was seeking an injunction against Charlie. Phil Facenda looked at me and said, "How can you do this? You went to Notre Dame as an undergrad and you went to law school." And I said, "Well, Phil, that's what they taught me how to do in law school." In any event, Charlie had hired me to represent him in that. And being the entrepreneur that Charlie was, and having economic acumen, I found out later on, when I was so bursting with pride that this senior lawyer, good trial lawyer, had hired me, that I was about number 5 in the list of calls he made, because I was the lowest hourly rate. We went on and we resolved that matter. The next thing that happened with Charlie, he began referring some cases to me. He referred me a garbage company that had a little rezoning issue. So I took that on and found out that I was in one of the biggest fights of my life, because it was Waste Management who was developing the Prairie View landfill. After 5 years of litigation, I got that done. And I was very thankful to Charlie for referring that to me. He also referred me a guy from Ohio who was the nephew of a great All-American football player at Notre Dame. And Charlie knew this guy through his Notre Dame connections. This guy was going to develop the Hilton Four Horsemen Hotel. And he came on with bravado, came into town, borrowed money from the National Bank, and ran around introducing himself to all the councilmen. And I thought, boy, this was great of Charlie to send me this case. Well, the guy never paid me. I had to sue him. So that was Charlie's second referral to me. Now, I would like you to understand that Charlie was not only a crack trial lawyer, but he was an entrepreneur in this sense. He started what is now the office of Pfeiffer and Morgan and Stasiak, and it's out there on Ironwood. Do you know what that used to be? It was Charlie's Garden Center. He started that whole building selling flowers and nursery tools and all kinds of paraphernalia. Then he turned it into a law office. And he was the first lawyer, I believe, in the state of Indiana to decide to do advertising after the Supreme Court allowed lawyers to do that. So Charlie was always ahead of the game. He was not only a crack trial lawyer, he was a good businessman. So as any trial lawyer has to be, Charlie had an ego. And my wife told him one time, "You know, Charlie, you look like Steve Martin." And you can see a little resemblance there. Charlie's response with his ego was, "No, Steve Martin looks like me." I cannot be prouder than to have been friends with a man like this. Charlie was not only a good-looking guy, he set the standard for dress. He set the standard for personality in the courtroom. And I am so happy to, on his behalf, receive this memorandum of his life on behalf of the Bar Association. I am only hoping that his children have been able to tune into the LinkedIn to hear this. The only one I was able to contact was Kelly Sanders, who's one of his daughters. And I'm hoping that she has passed this along to the other siblings. So on behalf of Charlie Sweeney, I'm happy to accept the memorial. Thank you very much for letting me talk. But listen, while I've got the floor, sit down, Judge. With people like Charlie Sweeney in mind, people like for whom I spoke last year, Jerry Mulvihill, perhaps people like myself, I've tried better than 200 jury cases. There are people in this room who have tried an equal number of jury cases, or at least bench trials, full-blown cases in federal and state court. Let me say something to this Bar Association. It is your requirement that you start spreading the word that unless you get some trials under your belts, and unless you start communicating with people in person, rather than by email, and rather than by using your name as some .com name, unless you start doing that, you're going to lose the ability to try cases if you already haven't. And you're going to lose the judge's ability to have any experience with trials. Where does that leave us? That means everything will be done by mediation, by email, or by phone, or by Zoom. Nobody will shake the hand of their opponent. Nobody will have lunch with their opponent or drinks. You better grab onto that while you still can, because it's dying away. And it's up to this Bar Association to do something about it. So start now. One final example. I have a hearing scheduled with a lady from Indianapolis. She took more time sending me an email about when I would be available to continue that hearing than it would have taken her to call me. I emailed back to her and said, okay, I'm available for a phone call on this day. She then emailed back to me to tell me she wasn't available at that time, but she could do it in the morning. And I thought, why is she spending all of this time emailing me when she could have called me? Please remember that that is where we're drifting to. And once again, thanks for the privilege. Your Honor, I'm sorry I told you to.
Again, thank you, Mr. Groves, for your comments. The next individual we'll recognize is William Reinke. Addressing some comments regarding Mr. Reinke will be Mr. Rick Morgan. Mr. Morgan.
You know, when Joe Fullenkamp called me a few weeks ago and asked if I would give some comments, I said, sure, how long should I speak? He said 5 minutes or less. Obviously, Jim didn't get that message. But that's okay. Yeah, he just chose to ignore it. You know, in 5 minutes or less, I don't know how you sum up 93 years of a gentleman, a scholar, and a friend and a mentor, but I'll try. And if his family's on, I apologize for just hitting the highlights. As we all know, Bill was born and raised in South Bend. He was a graduate of South Bend Adams. From there, he went to Wabash College. When Bill and his older brother attended there as one of 4 universities in the United States, was all male. It's now down to 2, by the way, and that should disappear, I would hope, in the future. After Bill graduated from Wabash, he went to University of Chicago Law School, full ride scholarship. There he studied with Carl Llewellyn and looked this guy up sometime. He was close to being a Nazi, but he was one of the greatest legal scholars in the history of American jurisprudence. Bill served 2 years in the Army active duty, several years reserve, returned to South Bend to practice law. and started out with the predecessor to the Thornburg firm. He spent his entire 40-plus year career in one firm. Typical back then, unusual today. Bill greeted me on my first day at the firm, early June 1973, introduced himself and said, "Are you available for lunch?" Sure. He came with 3 projects for me to do because he knew I had an open docket. So that's what Bill was. He was all about results. He did a couple things though. One is he entrusted me with some of his greatest clients. He had confidence in me early on, 2 insurance companies, 2 banks, and never once came and second guessed me, which puts a lot of pressure on a young lawyer, but he knew what to do. Bill was a Renaissance man. He had a lot of interests besides the practice of law. But one thing I've got to share with y'all is we were working late one night. We were in a jury trial in this courtroom, Judge Montgomery's courtroom. And all of a sudden he said, "You know, this reminds me of," and he broke out into a poem. He did frickin' 3 stanzas. I don't know. If it wasn't Robert Frost, I wouldn't know who it was. And he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, I think that's a nice poem. Let's get back to work." But just interesting. He was one of the last general practitioners at the Thornburg firm. He could be doing an estate plan in the morning and a deposition in the afternoon. Those of us who are younger, we were forced into 1 or 2 pigeonholes. Why? Because it was more profitable for the firm. But Bill always did what he wanted to do and how he wanted to do it. He had a real difficult time remembering people's names. I don't see Rich Erda here, but he would confuse Roger Benko and Brian Lake, for example. He would confuse my wife with somebody else. He always said, "Well, she does estate practice, right?" I said, "No, Bill, she does Social Security." Said, "Oh, okay." And we had that conversation probably a dozen times or so. Once Bill retired, he and I would go to lunch every 4 to 6 weeks. And he would bring me up to date on his kids, his grandkids, his great grandkids. And then he'd say, "What about you?" So we'd talk a little bit about that. And then we stayed away from politics and religion because we didn't agree on either one. So that worked out well. He also enjoyed talking about his farm down near Plymouth. I had the privilege to be there. I think it was 3 times. We were coming back from Indianapolis on work, and he said, "You got an extra hour?" And we'd go over there and check it out. That's the first time I realized that cacti, whatever, could grow in Indiana. He must have had 1,000 of those in one area of the place because it was sandy soil. I thought, this is kind of weird, but he was smart enough to get it off the property tax rolls and put it into the conservatorship or whatever. So that's something his kids will have to deal with now. One of Bill's habits was if he was in a trial with a younger lawyer, he would always make sure he showed up before the lawyer was there. He would kind of figure out, well, this guy's going to get here at 7. I'm going to get here at 6:30. And he would also not leave till the younger lawyer left. And he was trying to set an example. One of the things he would say and drill you with over and over again, "I'm not the smartest guy in that trial, but I'm going to be the best prepared guy in that trial." And that's kind of what he drove home. He was always about preparing. If you looked at his obituary, he's involved in a lot of different civic and charitable activities. And he never really talked about them. I didn't even know about his Salvation Army involvement until I read his obituary. But one of the things that he impressed upon the young attorneys in the firm is, look, we don't manufacture a product. We don't sell a product. We sell our services. And by doing that, we also need to give back to the community in terms of public service. And he's right. And I won't get on a soapbox like Jim just did, but keep that in mind because we take a lot out of this community. We need to give it back. Bill was the only guy that I ever met that was in the Encyclopedia Britannica, not once, but twice in the same edition. The once was his father was a home builder, and the Mossberg home on the south side of South Bend was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. And there's a picture of Frank Lloyd Wright, Bill's father, and Bill, because he worked on the project. Man, was he a skinny little shit. Geez. But then he had a byline in an article that he co-wrote with a law school professor. So I said, well, that's interesting. I'm sorry, I didn't get to see that. Next day comes in with the 2 volumes of the encyclopedia, said here and here, as if I was challenging his veracity or whatever, but just an interesting person. He was a gentleman. He was a kind man. He was a great friend. He was a loving husband, father, grandfather, great-grandfather. That's his legacy, is he was a gentleman. With that, I'll be quiet.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. The next individual we will address is Mr. Michael Rehak. Addressing Mr. Rehak is Jeff Kimmel. But before Mr. Kimmel comes up, I was not as familiar with Mr. Rehak as I was the other individuals, so I did some poking around. And it turns out that in college, Mr. Rehak was quite the playwright. Yeah, I have this edition of the Observer from February of 1972. So this is what I printed off. He wrote this play called Judas Christ, and it was it got a lot of national attention. Even he received what was called the Bush Fellowship from the University of Minnesota. He was had the opportunity to be considered for that. But the summary of the play in the Observer was that it's one of the most provocative plays ever presented by the theater. It is a challenge to the audience, a play which does not comfortably lend to neutrality. So I just thought that was really interesting. I'll have Mr. Kimmel come up, but I just found that was really interesting about Mr. Rehak because I was not that familiar with it. Mr. Kimmel, thank you.
Thank you, Judge. It's an honor to be able to say a few words in memory of my good friend, Mike Rehak. I met Mike back in 1999. I was a young lawyer looking for office space, and he had a thriving practice in the Tower building. He was by himself. He had his own secretary and an empty office. I moved in there. We became good friends. We shared the same space and were professional colleagues for over 20 years. He was a skilled and respected trial lawyer. But the 2 things that I remember the most about Mike Rehak were his sense of humor and his love of the game of baseball. And I brought with me something I wanted to share with you because it was a gift I got from Mike. And I think it kind of epitomizes both of those things. So I can get it out of my pocket here. And you might have trouble seeing it in the back, but it's a large hex nut. And there's 2 little hex nuts for eyes, and it makes a face. And it's a little guy with wire legs and arms, and he's holding a baseball bat at the plate. And it is, of course, a baseball nut. And Mike was a baseball nut, and he and I both shared a love of that game. He much more so than I. He was actually a excellent baseball player. For those of you that don't know, he pitched for the varsity team at the University of Notre Dame, where he got his undergraduate degree. He took a stab at becoming a professional baseball player. He had a wicked curveball, which anybody that wanted to feel the grizzle that was left of his elbow and his left arm, he had the proof of that. So he played through the single A's, got up into the double A league, and that's as far as his arm would take him. He then became a school teacher before he went to law school. He taught English at Riley High School. He coached the Riley High School baseball team for a while. He later on coached a little league team at New Carlisle, where he convinced me that it would be good experience if I would umpire some of the games in his team's league, and as compensation, I got the baseball nut. So Mike loved baseball trivia. I don't see Maury Rosen here today, but I know in particular he and Maury would try to stump each other. He and I would play that game. I would almost always lose. But I'll share with you one trivia question that I thought was the best that he ever asked me, and he stumped me with it. But the question was, who is the only person to ever hit from home plate a ball over the Wrigley Field scoreboard? And so I went through, thought, who are the big powerful guys that must have played a lot in Wrigley Field. I guess Dave Kingman, no. Willie Stargell, no. Willie McCovey. Then I gave up. And the answer is Sam Snead. I guess in an exhibition, he hit a golf ball with the 5-iron from home plate right over the Wrigley Field scoreboard. So, well, one other story that you like to tell, and I'm going to clean it up a little bit in case there's any kids listening, but it involved his childhood hero, Ernie Banks. Mike, as a kid, went to Wrigley Field before they had lights, middle of summer, hot daytime doubleheader. And he's there watching, and the Cubs get slaughtered in both games. Ernie Banks doesn't get a single hit in either game and makes a couple of errors in the field. And Mike sits through all of it, and he runs down to the tunnel where the players are leaving the field, kind of hot, tired, and dejected. And as Ernie Banks is coming through, young Mike yells at him, "That's okay, Ernie. We'll get him tomorrow." And his hero looked up at him, stopped, stared at him, made eye contact, and said, "F you, kid." And that was his conversation with Ernie Banks. So, and he was a very gifted trial lawyer. I could tell a few stories there, but I'll keep this brief. He had a wonderful sense of humor, always spoke what was on his mind, and I think he would like to be remembered for those things as much as the things that he did in the courtroom, his sense of humor and his love of baseball, and we'll miss him.
Thank you, Mr. Clinton. I can empathize with Mr. Kimmel. Our next person who's going to come up is Judge Hostetler. And I too had to coach teenage baseball with Judge Hostetler for his sons, and I always drew the umping duty for the All-Star game. So that was not something Judge Hostetler was volunteering to do. So the next individual we'll recognize is Mr. Phil Potts, and Senior Judge Hostetler will come and give some remarks.
I didn't remember. Did you have to umpire too? I didn't remember. I thought so. I learned from Mr. Rehak. It's my privilege this morning to lead us in remembering our colleague and friend, Philip C. Potts. We are only, as been mentioned here, we are only allotted a few minutes for these memorials. Not everybody listened to those instructions, but when Judge Woods gives me instructions, I listen. So we only have a few minutes, which for Phil Potts is very unfortunate because he had a very, very long life and a very productive life and career. He graduated law school from IU in Bloomington and went to the Army. He was an officer in the Army, and then after his Army service, he moved back to his native South Bend and began practicing law with his father. I think there was a Potts practicing law in South Bend for about 90 years. I don't have the exact numbers, but a long time. And during the course of his long and illustrious career, he was president of the St. Joseph County Bar Association. He was U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Indiana. He was judge of the South Bend City Court, among many, many, many other activities and accomplishments. And you can read all those in his obituary, which I would encourage you to go online and look up. It's very readily accessible. And it's a very, very well written and lengthy obituary. But sometimes it's difficult. It's usually difficult to discern from an obituary what kind of person someone was. And that's what I'd like to talk about today. As someone mentioned earlier, I think Jim, most of the people in this room are younger than I am. But those of us who are old enough will remember these things that were called books. And what books were, they were pieces of paper, pages that were bound together. And you could open the cover and there'd be information written on the books, and you could get that information by turning the pages. And it was very useful, very helpful. And one of the most useful of the books, and one that was most used, was called a dictionary. And a dictionary had it was a book, and it had all the words of the English language in the dictionary, and they were alphabetical. And you could look up the word and it would tell you how to spell the word. It would give you the etymology of the word and would tell you how to pronounce it and how to spell it, but would also tell you the meaning of the word. And sometimes with those words on the dictionary would be illustrations, a picture or a drawing to help you understand the meaning. I think if we found an updated dictionary, if we could find one, and we were to turn to the H's and we were to find the word honorable, I'm willing to bet that Phil Potts's picture would be there because he was honorable. And if we went down the page just a little bit and we found the word humanitarian, there's a pretty good chance Phil's picture would be there too. And if we went down just a little bit farther and found the word humble, I'm confident Phil's picture would be there because he was honorable. He was the epitome of a humanitarian, and he was very, very humble. That was Phil Potts. He had a terrific sense of humor, didn't he, Mitch? He had a terrific sense of humor and a hearty laugh, a great laugh. And he could tell a story. He could spin a yarn with the best of them. Jim mentioned trial lawyers. I've learned over the years that people who try cases tend to develop the ability to tell stories. And Phil had that gift. And living as long as he did, he had a lot of them. And he told them very well, and they were very funny, and I miss them very much. He was the consummate storyteller. Most of Phil's contemporaries beat him to the finish line, so it's up to us to remember him today. But I will tell you, I do remember him and I miss him. And I know there are other people in this room that do as well. I offer my condolences to his family. I also would like to mention at this time that not only are we mourning the loss of Phil, but his son Chris has retired, and Sherry, his daughter-in-law, is retired. And so we're going to not see them around as much, but I hope we will see them from time to time. And I want to wish them a happy retirement and a long retirement. So on behalf of the St. Joseph County Bar Association, I just say to our colleague and friend, the late Philip C. Potts, rest in peace.
Thank you, Judge Hostetler. The final individual we will recognize is John Lorber. Mr. Bob Palmer is going to come say words about his former law partner, Mr. Lorber.
And thank you, Judge. I wasn't the first choice for this honor. As most of you know, I have an older partner, Spence Walton. When they invited Spence to make these comments on behalf of John, they had second thoughts because they knew Spence couldn't keep his comments within a few minutes. Spence would be up here telling John Lorber stories forever. But I am very honored to be here and very humbled to be here because largely what I am today as an attorney is through John Lorber. And I told Judge Woods earlier that I'm going to have a hard time getting through this. John was a very good friend, a very good mentor, and a very good idol to look forward to the type of person I want to be. I always tell people in our firm, several of whom are here today as Bar Association member officers who never met John. I like to tell them, I think I'm the John Lorber of my generation. And I like to be that kind of mentor to them. I first met John in 1982 when I interviewed with the May Oberfeld, Lorber, Campidi, and Canopa firm. I can tell you that I don't remember the first time I met John. It was in the interview process. I do remember being interviewed by Art May. That was quite an interview. But my first real recollection of John was on my first day in the office on May 10th, 1982. I was sitting in my office, not knowing anything about the practice of law, not knowing anything about how I was going to fit into the firm. And John Lorber walked into my office and said, "So you clerked for the Court of Appeals?" I said, "Yeah, I spent 2 years clerking for the Court of Appeals." He plopped down a record about so big, said, "Take this appeal and run with it." Well, as a clerk for the Court of Appeals, you don't learn how to do an appeal. You don't learn the rules. You learn how to read briefs and try to convince the judge of what the correct law is. So I had no idea what I was doing. And I got through the appeal. I did it without any serious mistakes, but I did lose that appeal. But John had confidence in me from that point on, and I ended up probably over the last 42 years doing at least 90% of the appeals from May Oberfeld Lorber. John was an unassuming person. At that time in the May Oberfeld firm, we had Art May. Art May was a figure who was larger than life. We had Vince Campiti, another figure who was larger than life. We had Bob Canopa, who many of you probably know, who was also larger than life. John Lorber did not take a back seat to them, but he did not try to compete with them or overshadow them in any way. John Lorber was John Lorber. He did his work. Tim St. Clair mentioned to me outside the door when I was coming in, he said, John was a lawyer. That's what he did, but that's not who he was. And Tim was right. John was a family man. John was very proud of his wife, Rachel, who was an organist at Sunnyside Presbyterian and practiced at the organ at Notre Dame quite often. John was also very proud of his daughters, Martha and Leah. Leah is here with us today. John spoke often of his family and of his wife. He had a life outside the law, which I think every one of us needs to have. We should not simply be lawyers. We should be involved in our church, our community. John was. He was a prominent member in Sunnyside Presbyterian. He was also very proud of his associations with Corvilla. For those of you who know Corvilla, it's an not-for-profit organization for the advancement and development of people with disabilities, intellectual and physical. John was very proud of the work he did with them. In all the years I've been in practice in South Bend, I've never heard anyone say bad word about John Lorber. Probably the word that's been most used to describe John is a gentleman, and he truly was. Just as no one ever said a bad word about John, John never said a bad word about anyone. Would he get frustrated sometimes with opposing counsel? Yes, but he never took the position that that person was a bad person who was doing something individually. John understood that that the other attorney was doing his job. A lot of what I've learned about the law occurred in our second floor kitchen back when we were in St. Joseph Station. 10 o'clock every day, Art May would go up to the kitchen, John Lorber would go up to the kitchen, and they would just sit and talk. And any of us who had the time to come in and sit down, we would just sit and listen, kind of almost like Aristotle and his followers at his feet. We would just listen to their stories about what cases they had, what issues they had. And we learned a lot. Unfortunately, today, I don't think lawyers have as much time or desire to learn and just listen to their elders like we did. And I think that's a shame. Anyway, I got through this much of it. I'm going to quit. John Lorber was a friend of mine. He was a partner. He was a great family man. He was a gentleman, and I miss him dearly. I talked to him shortly before he passed, and he was always asking about what was going on at the firm, how the young people were doing, and wanted to be sure that the firm would continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Leah, we have a memorial that we'd like to present to you and your family. Thank you so much for coming. This is a memorial was presented by the Board of Governors of the Bar Association and members of the Bar Association. Your dad was a great member of the bar and a great member of the community. And even better than that, he was a great father to you. So we thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so much, Jen.
This concludes the memorial part of the presentation. Thank you so much. We have a great attendance today. I do appreciate the speakers and their excellent remarks today. It really honored these men that deserve to be honored in this way.
Thank you, Judge Woods. We will now move to acknowledgements to our outgoing board members. Our first, I don't know if they are here, our outgoing new lawyer chairs. Okay, well, I'll just say briefly that our two outgoing new lawyer co-chairs are Kyle Smith and Anna Samland. They've served in this capacity for the last 2 years, and we will get these recognition items to them when we see them next. We also would like to recognize Cecilia Monterosa, which I don't think she's here either, who has served on the St. Joseph County Bar Association Board since 2019. First, she was a regular board member, then she was secretary for 2 years, and then this last year, she was a regular member again. We are grateful for her years of service and know she will stay involved with the association. And we also have a token of appreciation for her as well. And finally, we will be acknowledging our outgoing board member, Mitch Heppenheimer. He's been a fixture of the St. Joseph County Bar Association Board for many years now. He originally joined the board, I'm told, in 1980 as a regular member. He later served as president from 1988 to 1989 and would have also held the roles of vice president and president-elect along the way. And then after serving as immediate past president, he returned to the board as a regular board member until 2002, when he was asked to serve the association as treasurer. He served as treasurer until 2015, when he was selected to be the Indiana State Bar Association president and asked to transition to one of the ex officio roles. He's now been in the ex officio role since 2015. As Mitch will be retiring on July 1st, he's asked to transition off the board at this time. He shared at our last board meeting that he has served on the Board of Governors in various roles for 43 years in total. And he estimates, I believe, that he attended approximately 518 board meetings during that time. I'd like to invite another one of our longtime board members up, Judge Gotch, to also share some words about the impact that Mitch has had on the association.
Mitch indicated to me before I came up that he wanted to have rebuttal. That motion is denied. I've been asked to make a few remarks about Mitch R. Heppenheimer, better known to all of us as Mitch, on the occasion of his retirement from the Board of Governors. Perhaps this is appropriate because he and I have served on the board together, apart for 1 year for the past 35 years. In fact, some have described us as the yin and yang of the Bar Association. Admittedly, Mitch is an acquired taste. He's been known to be sarcastic, acerbic, and persnickety, and those are among his best personality traits. To be fair, Mitch cares deeply about his family, his friends, and the legal profession. As the son of a lawyer, Mitch has been a proud member of the Indiana Roll of Attorneys since 1978.
He has given his heart and soul to the Indiana State Bar Association and to the St. Joseph County Bar Association. In fact, for more than 45 years, no one has worked harder, spent more time supporting, or raised more money for this association than Mitch. And since 1980, when he first joined the board, as Danny noted, he's attended 518 meetings. Over that time, he served on the board for 43 years. He's been its president, and he has been its treasurer for 13 years. When I had the honor to be elected as president of this organization in 1999, Mitch congratulated me and said, "You might be the president, but always remember, I am the king of the Bar Association." After Amy was selected to be the executive director, Mitch told her, "I am the Bar Association. Your only job is not to sink the ship." Acerbic. To quote from the history of the bar, although the new president is elected each year, continuity is maintained through the secretary treasurer position. Since 1941, that's 83 years, the association has only had 6 treasurers. John Degnan, Alex Cholis, Bob Parker, Mitch, Mario, and now Shannon. Mitch served as treasurer from 2002 to 2015 until he became president of the state bar. However, even when serving as president of the state bar, Mitch remained committed to this association. He continued to coordinate CLE events for the bar and was the impetus behind the biannual local practice seminar. As many of you know, the local practice seminar raises approximately $40,000 in revenue every other year for this association, and that supports a panoply of other bar activities and outreach. It remains one of our most popular events. Mitch has probably attended more social events and CLE seminars than any other member of the bar, and Amy notes that he always pays for them. However, the event that everyone remembers and that perhaps is a major coup was in 2009 when Mitch convinced former Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, who had no particular connection to either Indiana or South Bend, to speak to the St. Joseph County Bar Association about judicial independence. Justice O'Connor spoke to more than 600 people at the Palais Royale after having dinner with local judges and board members the night before at the former Summit Club. Her speech had a major impact on Governor Daniels and his eventual decision to veto legislation that would have repealed merit selection in St. Joseph County. I mentioned that Mitch has been a member of the board for 43 of the last 44 years. So what happened to that missing year? Well, I remember it like it was yesterday, although it was 1995. Mitch and I had served on the board for many years. Admittedly, Mitch had served longer than I, but we were removed from our position because we were told they wanted to bring in new blood. The following year, the chair of the nominating committee approached both of us somewhat sheepishly and asked if we would return to the board. Apparently, the new blood had coagulated and they needed a couple of stimulants to get the heart pumping again. So Mitch and I have served on the board since that time in some capacity. It's a legacy that I'm extremely proud of, and I know that Mitch is extremely proud of. Mitch may have been a lawyer by birthright, but he has been a servant leader for nearly 45 years locally and across Indiana. He leaves the association better than he found it. His is an example for all of us to emulate. There's plenty of room for anyone, you young lawyers specifically, I'm speaking to you, with the help to desire this association, and frankly, we need more Mitch Heppenheimers in this association. So please join me in thanking Mitch for his 44 years of service as a member of this association and 43 years of service on the Board of Governors. To the King of the Bar Association, King Mitchell I.
Would you like to come up and get your items? These photos are from the, what's that? These are from the event that Judge Gotch mentioned, the photos. And if you want a brief rebuttal, I will allow it.
I appreciate the words that Mike mentioned. I appreciate it. This association has been a very important part of my life, county and the state. I the words of Jim Groves and some of the other people here talking to the young lawyers, I believe in all those comments that were made. Part of the reason that I think I'm leaving and retiring, aside from having some pretty good health and it's time to go, and as I sit and listen to these 5 memorials, and I knew all these people very well, and I would have some great stories to tell about them, but I think you've heard enough. It's time for me to leave, but part of the problem is it's changed so much, as Jim talked about. And I hope that the young lawyers do take some of the words to heart. I think the practice of law is an important thing. You're all lawyers, you all work hard, you all do different things, but we've kind of lost that personal touch between ourselves. And that's a very important part. I think that's what really kind of spirited me to get involved in a bar association many years ago. And I hope that all you people do that, follow those words. They're very good words. And thank you for this. I appreciate it. I believe in the bar. I'm not leaving. I'm just not going to work anymore. So thank you very much.
Before I move on, I want to quickly also recognize one other person, our executive director, Amy McGuire. I think many of us know this, but I will say that there's so much work behind the scenes that Amy does that she deserves recognition for. For example, last year she was tasked with assisting with the 150th celebration, which fell just weeks before the local practice seminar, which is also a very great undertaking. And she handled all of this with grace. Both of those events were a big success. She keeps the rest of the board on our toes and makes sure we don't miss any deadlines or anything we should be thinking about. She's approachable and a great resource for our members. And so I just want to say thank you, Amy, for all of your hard work this year, and a small token of appreciation for you. If you'd like to come up. Don't have it ready, sorry. Thank you, Amy. Okay, and now it is my honor to introduce the St. Joseph County Bar Association's next president, effective July 1st, Sean Towner. Sean is currently a partner at May Oberfell Lorber. He joined the firm in 2017, and his practice areas include corporate and business, banking and finance, commercial real estate, and labor, employment, and workers' compensation. Prior to joining May Oberfell Lorber, Sean was a deputy prosecutor in South Bend, where he primarily prosecuted violent crimes. He received his bachelor's from Ball State University and his JD from the University of Tulsa Law School. Sean is married and a father of 2 and is quite involved in our local community, serving on a number of local nonprofit boards and volunteering in other ways. And he was recognized as a member of the 2022 Michiana 40 Under 40 class. He has been a member of the Board of Governors since 2020, I think. I don't know if I got that right. And we're excited to see what he does in his presidential year. Thank you. Please come forward, Sean.
Thank you. I suspect most of you are getting pretty hungry right now, so I will keep my remarks real brief. I want to start by thanking Danny for her service and leadership to the Bar Association over the past year. She's been a fantastic leader for our group and was instrumental, along with many others in this room, with putting on the 150th anniversary gala, which hopefully all of you were able to attend. It was a fantastic event and very memorable. So thank you, Danny, for your hard work. I also would like to thank Amy for all of her service to the Bar Association. I can't emphasize enough how much easier our job is on the Board of Governors due to the hard work she puts in behind the scenes. So thank you very much, Amy. And thank you to all of you for being here with us this morning for our annual meeting. It's a beautiful day outside, and I'm grateful that you've chosen to come inside with us and spend an hour here. I'm very honored to become your next bar president. When I was at the gala, I was looking through the program, and it had listed all of the past bar presidents, and I realized what a very impressive group of attorneys have served in this capacity. I'm honored to join that list, and I hope to serve the bar as well as they have. I have a goal over the coming year of seeing what the Bar Association can do to help our local firms recruit young associates to this area, particularly young associates who did not grow up here. It's my understanding that some firms have had a little bit of difficulty in recruiting associates for open positions over the past year or so. I think that's due in part to Valparaiso Law School having recently closed, which had been a feeder program for many firms in this area, along with a number of younger lawyers taking in-house positions in the RV and financial industries in our community. So I'm excited to work with the board and see what we can do to help foster recruitment of attorneys in our area. We, of course, will have many fun events like we always do this year, the highlight of which I believe will be the return of the annual Bar Association golf outing. That will be on September 23rd at the South Bend Country Club. So whether you're a good golfer or like most of us, not so good golfer, please feel free to join us. After that, we'll be having a reception for Judge Crone. Thank you again for your time this morning, and I would like to end with a small token of appreciation for Danny.
Thank you, Sean. Just one final item. We have a membership survey that you will be receiving soon in the mail if you haven't already. I think it's going to be a postcard. There's also, I think I can change the slide here. There's also a QR code that you can scan if you'd like to take it now. We ask that you take this. This will help us in planning events for this year, decide what's important, what are we missing. We'd really like to hear the feedback so we can plan appropriately. So thank you. I think that's it, and we'll adjourn. Thank you.